Myeongnang is a 2014 South Korean historical war film directed by Kim Han-min. It masterfully chronicles the legendary Battle of Myeongnang, where Admiral Lee Sun-shin, against overwhelming odds, led his fleet of 12 ships to a decisive victory over 330 Japanese vessels in 1597. The film is a gripping tale of leadership, strategy, and resilience, brought to life with stunning visuals and a captivating narrative. They say history repeats itself. If we take this saying to heart, I think that rediscovering the traditional sciences in our history will show us the way we should take in the present. The Joseon dynasty from 1392 to 1897, depicted in Myeongnang, is a deeply complex era of Korean history, marked by its cultural achievements, rigid societal structure, and struggles against external threats. The film focuses on a critical period during the Imjin War from 1592 to 1598, when the dynasty faced invasion from Japan under the Tomi Hideyoshi. The Joseon dynasty was under tremendous strain during the time of the Battle of Myeongnang in 1597, the central event of the movie. Japan sought to conquer Joseon as a foothold to invading in China, causing widespread devastation across the Korean peninsula. The movie portrayed Joseon as a nation on the brink of collapse, with its military forces depleted and moral at an all-time low. Joseon society was deeply rooted in Confucian principles, which emphasizes hierarchy, loyalty, and ethical governance. This is reflected in Admiral Lee's character, who remained unwavering in his commitment to his people and the king, despite being wrongfully imprisoned and reinstated only after the naval situation became desperate. The Joseon Navy, though technologically advanced in some areas, such as the use of turtle ships, was vastly outnumbered during the battle. The movie showcases the innovative tactics of Admiral Lee, who leveraged the roaring current of the Myeongnang Strait to neutralize the numerical superiority of the Japanese fleet. At its heart, the story is a tribute to the indomitable spirit of the Korean people and their fight for survival during one of the darkest chapters of our history. Born in Hanseong in 1545, Admiral Lee Sun-shin passed the military service examination at the late age of 32 in 1576 and became a government official. As time passed, when the Imjin War broke out, he became the naval commander and fought in many battles, sinking more than 800 enemy ships during the war and winning all 23 naval battles, leaving a rare precedent in the world. In Japan, Admiral Lee Sun-shin is remembered as a person born for the Imjin War. What Admiral Lee Sun-shin showed is moral courage in the face of overwhelming odds. This concept reflects the idea of acting in alignment with one's principles, values, and sense of duty, even when success seems impossible. Admiral Lee Sun-shin embodies this through his unwavering commitment to protect his people and country, despite being vastly outnumbered and facing near certain defeat. Admiral Lee Sun-shin's leadership in Myeongnang is depicted as a paragon of resilience, tactical brilliance, and selfless dedication to his people. The film showcases his leadership during one of Korea's most desperate historical moments, the Battle of Myeongnyang in 1597, during the Imjin War. Here are the key aspects of Admiral Yi's leadership as portrayed in the movie. First, unwavering resolve in adversity. Admiral Yi is shown as a steadfast leader who refused to yield even when faced with overwhelming odds. With only 12 ships against a Japanese fleet of over 300 vessels, his determination to fight rather than retreat inspires his men and stands as a testament to his unshakable faith in his strategy and his duty. For example, despite the demoralization of his troops and the skepticism of his allies, Yi remains resolute, embodying the idea that even in the face of certain defeat, one must fight to protect one's homeland. Second, tactical brilliance. Yi Sun-shin's strategic mind is central to his depiction. He exploits the natural geography of the Myeongnyang Strait, where the narrow and turbulent waters create powerful currents that he uses to his advantage. His ability to adapt the situation and use asymmetric tactics demonstrates his unparalleled understanding of naval warfare. For example, the iconic use of the roaring current traps the larger Japanese fleet in chaos, allowing his smaller force to achieve a decisive victory. This highlights his foresight and ability to turn environmental factors into key tactical advantages. Third, inspirational leadership. Yi is portrayed as a leader who commands respect through his action and personal integrity. He leads from the front, earning the loyalty and admiration of his men. His stoic demeanor and calmness under pressure serve as a source of strength for his subordinates. For instance, Yi personally takes the helm of the flagship, rallying his men and demonstrating that he is willing to sacrifice himself for the cause. This act of courage galvanizes his troops, who overcome their fear and fight with renewed determination. Fourth is moral integrity. Yi Sun-shin's leadership is deeply rooted in Confucian values of loyalty, duty, and moral uprightness. Even after being unjustly imprisoned and demoted due to political machinations, he harbors no resentment and focuses solely on the survival of his nation. For example, Yi's interactions with his men and his unwavering focus on the mission underscore his selflessness. He places his needs of his people and country above his personal grievance or ambitions. In addition, fifth is empathy and humanity. The film also humanizes Yi by showing his concern for the welfare of his crew. While he is strict disciplinarian, he understands the fear and doubts of his soldiers and works to address them, instilling confidence through his leadership. For instance, his motivational speech to his demoralized crew emphasizes their critical role in defending the nation, lifting their spirits and uniting them under a common purpose. Finally, sixth is legacy of sacrifice. The film portrays Yi as someone acutely aware of the weight of his responsibilities. His willingness to endure personal sacrifice and shoulder the burden of leadership reflects his commitment to ensuring Korea's survival during its darkest hour. Example in the film, E's decision to face the enemy fleet despite knowing the odds encapsulates his belief in leading by example and his readiness to sacrifice everything for his country. In conclusion, Admiral Yi Sun-shin's leadership in Myeongyang is depicted as a combination of strategic genius, moral strength, personal courage, and resilience, which is ability to endure adversity and inspire hope in others. His ability to inspire, innovate, and lead under extreme pressure is a central theme of the film, making him not just a historical figure but a timeless symbol of heroism and integrity. The movie's portrayal solidifies Yi as one of the greatest naval commanders in history and national hero of Korea. Japan had been in a chaotic period of warring states themselves for a long time, but Toyotomi Hideyoshi unified the country with matchlock guns. The problem was that the unification was too unstable, so internal unity was needed. Also, samurai were people who had to prove their abilities through battle, so a period of peace after unification was no different from losing their sense of duty and dying as unemployed people. All of this became the root cause of social unrest, so Toyotomi thought he had to find a way out, and that was the Imjin War. Until April 13th, 1592, the day before the outbreak of the Imjin War, Yi Sun-shin was conducting test firings of turtle ship cannons at a shipyard in Yeosu. The first and second military contingent invaded Joseon, and the second contingent was supposed to supply weapons and food to the first contingent, but Admiral Yi Sun-shin cut off the supply line every time the second contingent entered. Busan was the best supply base for Japan when it advanced into Korea, but from the Japanese army's point of view, they were repeatedly failing in naval battles, so Toyotomi Hideyoshi issued an order to build a castle on Gojedo Island, a good location from which to attack the Joseon Navy without boarding ships near the coast. At that time, the fleet centered on wooden ships had no choice but to come to the safe inland sea instead of the dangerous open sea. But Yi Sun-shin's choice of Hansando was to protect his defense. Since there was no supplementary fleet, it was over if they lost once. So he had a mental burden that he should not fight unless he had to win. Both countries were experts in fighting, but since moving first without a clear vision of victory could expose their weakness, they could not move or launch a preemptive attack at Hansando, and his difficult appearance is clearly revealed in his war diary at that time. There are 5 key aspects of Admiral Yi's genius strategies and tactics as portrayed in this movie. First, exploiting the environment. Admiral Yi uses the unique geography and natural currents of the Myeongyang Strait, such as bottleneck, ebb and flow current, spiral eddies, weather, to his advantage. The straight, narrow passage and powerful tidal currents create difficult conditions for large fleets, limiting the Japanese Navy's maneuverability and allowing the smaller Korean fleet to fight more effectively. Timing the battle to coincide with favorable tidal currents was critical. The strong currents slowed and scattered the Japanese ships, making them vulnerable to concentrate attacks. Second, psychological warfare. Lee Sun-shin boosts the morale of his demoralized fleet by displaying unwavering confidence and resolve. His speech to his crew emphasizes their duty to defend the country and instills a sense of unity and purpose. The single icon turtle ship, a heavily armored Korean warship, plays a psychological role, although its actual presence at this battle is debated historically. Each depiction in the film symbolizes Korean resilience and creates fear among Japanese forces. Third is concentration of force. Despite being vastly outnumbered 12 ships against a fleet of over 300, it focuses on strategic engagement, targeting the lead ships of the Japanese fleet to disrupt their formations and sow chaos. He positions his flagship as the focal point of the attack, drawing enemy ships into vulnerable positions while avoiding overextension. In the Battle of Myeongnyang, Admiral Lee Sun-shin abandoned the crane wing formation he had previously used and deployed a straight line formation to make up for the numerical disadvantage of his ships. He lined up his ship in a single line to show off his forces, and when the enemy approached, he pulled back. Some of the ships that he had been lined up and overlapped them, making it look like there were more ships when viewed from a distance. In addition, fourth is defensive tactics. The Korean Navy adopts defensive formations that minimize exposure to the overwhelming numbers of Japanese ships. They use the geography of the strait to create the bottleneck, reducing the numerical advantage of the Japanese fleet. Each ship utilized long-range artillery to weaken enemy vessels before close combat, reducing the risk to his smaller fleet. In addition, they installed supports on both sides of the sea, such as iron chains, and set up obstacles by hanging iron chains using large rocks and trees. If they moved quickly with the current, the Japanese Navy would get caught in the iron chain and cause chain collisions. Lee Sun-shin's fleet did not miss the moment of great chaos. According to historical reports, there are records of mobilizing local ships and fishing boats to make it look like there were more fleet in the sea behind. And there are also stories handed down of women in various places in the mountains holding hands, dressing up as men, and going around the mountainside to dance gangang sole. Finally, fifth is deception. The film illustrates moments of misdirection, such as feigning retreat, of creating the illusion of a stronger defense than reality. These tactics disrupt the enemy's plans and create opportunities for counterattacks. This combination of these strategies, utilizing natural terrain, psychological fortitude, and superior tactics, allowed Admiral Lee Sun-shin to achieve incredible victories and solidify his legacy as one of the greatest naval commanders in history. The turtle ship is a warship of the Joseon Navy that was active during the Imjin War. It was an improved version of the Panoksan, which was the main ship of the Joseon Navy. It was designed to be easy to attack by shooting by adding a loop to increase defense and installing many gun ports. It was also designed to be easy to attack by installing a dragon head-shaped ram and gun port in the front. It was the world's first gun-powered era ship designed for completely enclosed combat. At the time, The Japanese Navy's tactic was not to attack directly from ships, but to ride small, quickly maneuverable ships and storm enemy ships to capture them in close combat or burn them by throwing torches. Therefore, the turtle ships, which had roofs covered in lacquer and were studded with nails, were ineffective against landing, and because they sunk enemy ships with such firepower that they would not even allow close combat, they literally boasted the majesty of a sea fortress during the Imjin War. During the war, the Joseon Navy had 3 ships. The Bangdap Gisan belonging to the Bangdap Jin of the Jeolla Navy left, the Young Gisan belonging to the Jeolla Left Navy headquarters, and the Tongyang Gisan built after the Tongyang was established. However, all of them were sunk during Wongun's Battle of Chilcheonnyang. There is a common belief in the world that Lee Sun-shin personally developed the turtle ship, an ironcraft warship, and that he personally boarded it, but in fact, the mainstay of the Joseon Navy was the Panoksan, and Lee Sun-shin was not the first person to develop the turtle ship. Of course, it is true that Lee Sun-shin modified it into the turtle ship that is commonly known today. Nanjung Ilgi is a diary written by Lee Sun-shin, a military officer in the Mid-Joseon dynasty during the 7 years of the Imjin War from 1592 to 1598. It was designated as National Treasure number 76 of the Republic of Korea on December 20th in 1962. And its name was changed to Lee Sun-shin Nanjung Ilgi and Seoganchop Imjinjangcho on August 25th in 2010. A total of 9 volumes, including 7 volumes of diaries, 1 volume of letter writing, and 1 volume of Imjinjangcho were designated as National Treasure number 76. On June 18th in 2013, UNESCO accepted the recommendation of the 11th UNESCO International Advisory Committee on the Memory of the World held in Gwangju and registered them as UNESCO Memory of the World under the names of Lee Sun-shin's Nanjung Ilgi and letter writing Imjinjangcho, along with the records of the New Village movement. During the 7-year war, there were times when he could not write a diary, such as when he went on a campaign and was sent to Hanyang for disobedience, but he wrote down every day, including the year and weather, whenever he had time. The content includes his poetic daily life, his interactions with colleagues and relatives, and his personal household affairs, as well as his secret strategies for commanding the Joseon Navy at the time, his loyalty and resentment toward the country and the government, and his anger toward the Japanese. It also recorded a wide range of issues, including conflicts between superiors, generals, and subordinates, as well as politics, economy, society, and the military at the time. The Nanjung Ilgi is an important historical document that is indispensable for studying the Imjin War. On July 16th in 1597, in the Battle of Chilcheonnyang in Goje, Joseon mobilized 160 Panoksons, which could be considered the entire Joseon Navy fleet, but suffered a great defeat. The damage to Joseon was enormous. The number of Joseon soldiers who drowned was incalculable. The state of Joseon's navy after the Battle of Chilcheonnyang was described as annihilation. The Battle of Chilcheonnyang was a naval battle in which Joseon's navy which had prepared extensively during the 4 years of peace negotiations before Silcheonyang, suffered terrible damage with the exception of about 10 ships, all being destroyed by the Japanese. Immediately after the Joseon Navy was annihilated, the Isun-shin was reappointed as the naval commander, but his feeling must have been despair itself, as he had to prepare for war again in the gloomy situation where he could not even procure a single ship or weapon. However, in a situation where the Japanese army could invade at any time, Isun-shin had to somehow revive the Joseon Navy. The second invasion of Korea by Japan that broke out again from 1597 to 1598, the latter Imjin War, was different in scale from the first war. Led by Kato Kiyomasa and Gonishi Yukinaga, a whopping 120,000 troops were mobilized. When they entered at the beginning of the war, the firing range of natural gun was 50 meters, but during the later Imjin War, the firing range increased to 100 meters. To the soldiers of Namwon-song who had been holding out with arrowheads against the Japanese forces armed with natural gun, were no match for them. In addition, the Japanese forces who had been ordered to systematically massacred countless civilians in the Jeollado region. They even cut off the nose of Joseon people. It is said that the number of noses cut off at the time amounted to tens of thousands. At the time, Isun-shin was brought to the court on charges of disobeying King Sejong's order to sortie and was only able to be released after undergoing harsh interrogation. The diary of the war at this time clearly shows Isun-shin's extreme suffering. This is an excerpt from his diary. I vomited 10 times and suffered all night long. How would I feel sitting with my head down? Furthermore, when the enemy was approaching Henan and he had to make a decision in the worst situation, and there was no time to wait, the last card Isun-shin could choose was the Myeongyang Strait. Isun-shin knew the geographical features of the bottleneck like Uldolmok and the fast current, so he lured the enemy deep into the Uldolmok. The plan was a success. In the battle that took place on the 15th day when the tidal difference was at its peak, the ships in front lost their balance and fell, and the Japanese ships collided with each other and were swept away by the current. Since Myeongyang Strait is where the West Sea and the South Sea meet, the current is so strong that the water swirls and comes back. The moment the current from the South Sea passes through the narrow 204 meters wide Uldolmok, the water pressure increases rapidly and the current speed increases by more than 10 times, up to 6.5 meters per second. These fast rapids collide with the reefs on the seabed of Uldolmok, creating a whirlpool. Furthermore, the direction of the current changes 4 times a day, every 6 hours depending on the high and low tides, and the location of the whirlpool changes each time, making it difficult to even stop a ship there, let alone fight. The actual day of the Battle of Myeongyang, September 16th in 1597 in the lunar calendar and October 25th in the solar calendar, was the high tide period when the tide is at its fastest. The tidal phenomenon becomes stronger when the full moon rises, and because the gravitational pull of the moon is the strongest, the difference between high and low tides eventually becomes larger, and the tides become faster. It seems that the whirlpools caused by the strong current there, which were the strongest along the coast of Korea and the fifth fastest in the world, reached their peak, and the Japanese forces were helplessly tied up and suffered a crushing defeat. On September 16th, the day the Battle of Myeongyang broke out, Lee Sun-shin recorded his diary for that day in the longest and most detailed way. Facing a massive force of Japanese ships, Lee Sun-shin's ships took the lead, but the 11 ships that were supposed to follow him did not move forward at all. The following is an excerpt from Lee Sun-shin's handwritten diary. However, as my ship turned its head, the ships retreated farther and farther away, and the enemy ships gradually approached to the point where the defenses at Ultramok were on the verge of collapse. The pirate Origin Kurojima charged to end the battle before the current got stronger, and Lee Sun-shin changed his weapon to Jorantan, which could kill a large number of people at close range, and prepared for close combat. At noon, the current changed, and the Japanese forces now faces the opposite current. Then, the remains of the Japanese broken ships floated toward the Japanese forces, and the Japanese fleet had to avoid colliding with them. Naturally, their battle lines were disrupted. As a result, the Joseon Navy behind them, who were scared, also gained increasingly courage, and the remaining 9 Banoksan began to join them. This legendary Battle of Myeongyang, which was recorded in the history of warfare, in which Admiral Lee Sun-shin defeated 133 Japanese warships with only 12 Banoksans without even the turtle ships that were his symbol, is difficult to find in world history a case in which such an overwhelming victory was achieved with such a remarkably small number of troops. Admiral Lee Sun-shin made a calculation while retreating. As winter was coming, it would be cold and windy, making it difficult for the Japanese Navy to move, so they would abandon Jeolla province, where they had never been, and retreat toward Busan, where their base was. His calculation turned out to be correct. Why did director Kim Han-min focus on roaring currents? The reason is that the Battle of Myeongyang was different from Admiral Lee Sun-shin's other battle styles. The reason Admiral Lee Sun-shin was able to record consecutive victories until then was that he fought battle by surprise, attacking a small number of enemies who were letting their guards down with his superior fighting power. In other words, he fought after winning first. That is why Admiral Lee Sun-shin is called a great general. However, Admiral Lee Sun-shin said that the Battle of Myeongyang was a stroke of luck. In the movie, he gathers his soldiers and says, "The art of war says, if you are determined to die, you will live. If you are determined to live, you will die." He also says, if one man got a point of strategic importance center, he can make the whole world fear him. This is what is said about us today. Those who face fear will change history. Toyotomi Hideyoshi, who was defeated in the Battle of Myeongyang, changed his strategy to station the military along the southern coast, conquer slowly, and do not rush but take time. So Lee Sun-shin used this time to rebuild the Joseon Navy, and the number of his ships increased to 58, which later became the driving force for Lee Sun-shin to mobilize around 80 ships during the Battle of Noryang. isolated Gonishuki Naga bribed the Ming troops to send a ferry to request reinforcements, and the Battle of Noryang began at 2 a.m. on December 16th in 1598 and November 19th lunar calendar. Admiral Isun-shin finished his diary on the 17th of the Nanjun Ilgi and headed to the Noryang Strait, the final battlefield, on the 18th. It is said that during the Battle of Noryang, hundreds of enemy ships were instantly reduced to ashes as flame retreated fiercely, and the entire sea turned red. Enemy ships and friendly ships tangled together, and close combat took place, where we could see the enemy's face. It was the largest engagement of the 7 Years' War. It is said that the battle became increasingly fierce, and fear was no longer something to be afraid of. There is a place in Noryang called the Cleft Valley, also known as Gachang Valley. The reason is that between the Gangjin-si and the Gwanwon-Sea, there is a small piece of land in the middle. Someone painted the land blue so that it looked like the sea from afar. That is why the Japanese soldier thought it was a waterway and fled there, but eventually it was blocked and they drowned or were isolated. It is said that they captured 100 Japanese ships, burned 200, and the number of those who drowned and did not surface was impossible to count. If the Battle of Myeongyang had not happened, the Japanese would not have suffered such great damage in the Battle of Noryang. On November 19th, day of lunar month in 1598, Admiral Isun-shin was shot by a bullet. Isun-shin's last was dry. He left behind the last words. "The battle is the summit. Don't say that I was dead." Without any grace or sadness, all he left behind was his will. Around noon on 19th, the war ended. In Joseon, which was full of misunderstandings and treason, Admiral Isun-shin wrote his war diary. Each of them was a harsh truth that Isun-shin wanted to pass to future generations. The last diary he could not write was an assessment from history that he sacrificed his life to save the country. Choi Min-sik delivers a commanding portrayal of Admiral Isun-shin, encapsulating his stoic resolve, tactic genius, and profound sense of duty. His performance anchors the film, making the audience deeply invested in his character's struggles and triumphs. The naval warfare scenes are breathtakingly executed, blending practical effects with CG to create a visceral experience. The depiction of the iconic Roland Corange adds a layer of drama and tension, highlighting its strategic brilliance. The film remains faithful to its historical context, offering insight into the Joseon dynasty's struggle for survival during the Imjin War. It not only entertained but educated viewers on a pivotal moment in Korean history. The cinematography captures the chaos and beauty of naval warfare, while the sound design immerses viewers with the clamor of battle crashing waves, cannon fire, and rallying cries. While Admiral E is fleshed out, many supporting characters, including the Japanese adversary, feels underdeveloped, reducing the complexity of the conflict to a straightforward narrative of good versus evil. The build-up to the cinematic battle is somewhat slow, with moments of exposition that may test the patience of viewers unfamiliar with the historical background. The Admiral Roaring Corange is a stirring tribute on of Korea's greatest historical heroes. Each flaws in pacing and character depth are overshadowed by its powerful storytelling, thrilling action sequences, and Chenishik's unforgettable performance. For fans of historical dramas and epic war films, this is a must-watch. I realized that the history of our ancestors who did not give up even in the midst of the crisis of the Battle of Myeongyang is a future that will return. In what historical passage can you once again find our future?